So this is a video that I was not expecting to be able to make at all because I don't have the fastest trigger finger in the world and I'm also not that wealthy. However, luckily, living in Edinburgh, and it is a lucky thing in some respects, financially not so much, but in other respects, particularly when it comes to the world of rare and unusual whiskies, if you can't get your hands on a full bottle yourself and you just want to try one, well, there are places in this city that will more than happily provide. So I got in touch with one of these and I said, hey, do you mind if I bring along a sample bottle, because the Six Nations are starting tomorrow and I'm going to be doing a 16-hour shift and I don't trust that you're still going to have anything in that bottle by the time I'm finished on Sunday. So might I nip along and get a little sample? And they were like, yeah, sure, cool, whatever, just cough up. And I was like, awesome. So today I bring you Ardbeg Fermutation, Attack of the Washbacks. And at first it might seem like quite a gaudy and very advertisey kind of a name, and it is, but there is also some reason behind it. And it's not just that there are washbacks involved, because there are washbacks involved with all whiskies. Now then, we're going to get into trying the whiskey, which I have in this jank little sample bottle here, but also we're going to get into a little bit of technical process. Not too much, because it's not really my comfort zone. You will notice when I review whiskies normally, I'm quite fast and loose with the kind of the how. I am peripherally aware of how whiskey is made, but I'm by no stretch an expert. I've mentioned this before and I'll mention it again, that I take issue to people calling themselves experts when they couldn't go into a distillery and start making whiskey. For me, that is a qualification to being a whiskey expert. Being able to nose and taste it and come up with tasting notes and having a really sensitive palate, that's a skill in of itself, but it does not qualify you as an expert, in my humble opinion. Now that's out of the way, we're going to talk washbacks for a second. So this release, limited release, 13 years old, and expensive, £160. Your mileage may vary. That was the cheaper price, because you won't get it for £160 anymore. I had a quick look on the internet. It's a dark place at the best of times. I saw £225, I saw $350 auction sites. It's going for like $400 odd. It's blown up already. It's gone silly money pretty much immediately. It's the kind of thing that the Bowmore Aston Martin release is kind of looking at and foaming at the mouth, being like, why aren't we getting this? And the answer is because, well, we know your game. So what's the story behind this? Many moons ago, 2007, I believe. I'm going a lot of this off memory, so some of the details might be a little bit loopy. A boiler broke in Ardbeg. Now, why does that matter? Well, there's a couple of extenuating things to this, but the first thing is that they need the boiler to be able to distill the liquid. Now then, they had a batch of whiskey on the go already, and it was in their washbacks, which are big wooden baths, for want of a better way of putting it. Basically what they do is they take the wort, which contains the ground up malted barley, or grist as it is otherwise known, which contains the sugars that are needed to feed the yeast to produce alcohol. It's alcohol 101, basically. Now then, what had happened was the boilers were down, so they couldn't distill it. So it was already in the wash tubs fermenting, and basically they had to just sort of leave it there. Now then, Ardbeg already boasts a longer fermentation time. It's 72 hours, and they do that because they have quite phenolic whiskey at the end of the day. It's Peter 250 parts per million, the barley, as it goes in. They don't have their own malting floors, they use Port Ellen maltings. That's also another little thing that's, I don't know, if fact finders are interested in that kind of a thing, then now you know. It's also, you know, very readily available information. You can go on ardbeg.com, or is it .com or .ac? I don't know, but it's on their website anyway, because that's where I found it. It's not just something I know off the top of my head. So anyway, they had to leave it in the washbacks, basically, over a unprecedentedly long fermentation period, completely unscripted. Like, there's no good reason why you would normally leave it for this period of time. They ended up leaving it for 3 weeks. Now then, in that time, you've got the risk of basically all the yeast dying and there being a bacterial infection and it being sort of a dead product, basically. So there was a big risk that they were going to have to throw all this away and start again. However, they came up with the idea of, well, if they can just keep the yeast cultures alive, they might be able to come out with something. So what they did was they threw back the lids on the washbacks and they allowed natural wild yeast, as well as some bacteria, I would imagine, to get into the washbacks and basically just keep it going. So anyway, long story short, they fixed the boilers, they made the whiskey as per normal, and they bottled the whiskey 13 years later. And here we are with a, let's just go out and say this, overpriced special edition. It's full-blown marketing, it's full-blown Ardbeg special release, it's full-blown Flipper's Delight. It doesn't matter if it's shit, to be honest, because it's not the purpose of the whiskey. The purpose of the whiskey is to make a fast buck, and in that it is succeeding. People that have bought multiple bottles of it have already put it online, and they are guaranteed a return pretty much instantaneously. It's printing money. That's all it is, it's printing money. I love the label, I love the story behind it, I love the design. The flavour of the whiskey is borderline irrelevant, and that's sad. Because I rate Ardbeg very highly as a distillery. Whether their intentions were as cynical as I'm making them sound, I don't know, but it's difficult to say no, because I mean, I'm aware that, you know, if they put out a release tomorrow with, like, I don't know, a pink carnation on it filleting Bill Clinton or something, then, you know, and they call it something like, I don't even know, but they'll come up with something and, you know, there's some glitzy backstory behind it. Make a quick bit of money out of it, because Ardbeg fans are big. It's one of those distilleries that has a huge following. I'm very lucky to have that. And they haven't done many things really to piss that fandom off yet. So it's working for them. You know, and Ardbeg, owned by the same people that have Glenmorangie, they know how to market. You know, marketing is at their lifeblood. I'm not saying as well that I don't like Ardbeg. I very much do like Ardbeg. I'm a big fan of Ardbeg. And they do a lot of things very, very well. They do so many things completely right. This particular release, I think it rubbed a few people up the wrong way, just because whilst this kind of a thing is basically bottling a fuck up, for want of a better way of putting it, should that then make it more accessible? The answer would appear to be no. If anything, it's made it less accessible, because you've had to put down a massive chunk of change for what is ultimately a 13-year-old whiskey. However, the only point of interest with this, is this whiskey's pretty unique in that it's had that really long fermentation period. So what has that done to the whiskey? It's probably time we found out. So I've got here the said whiskey. Now, oh Jesus, I've looked up, oh that's very different, we'll get to that in a second. I've looked up some other people's opinions on this already, and I'm a little bit nervous because there's a few notes that people have picked up on this of a specific food group that I'm really, really, really not a fan of. So this is going to be interesting. But on the nose, it's fucking weird, guy. It's like vegetal and, I mean, like pickled onion crisps straight off the bat. There's like something quite vinegary, acidic about it. It's like sprouts if you, like, I don't know, cook them in balsamic vinegar or something. There's something really strange and vegetal and vinegary and acidy about it. Acidic, sorry, not acidy, acidic. There's a peaty tang to it. Again, it's just lots of like really like cabbagey, celery. It's got a green vegetal note to it. I don't even know it's a spade in the face, but it's grassy, it's a little bit smoky, it's... got a lactic quality to it, like milk that's just starting to turn, you know, it's like, maybe get another half day out of that. It's that kind of... pickled onions, I can't get around that. There's like a acidic, vinegary tang to it. It's punchy. Pickled onion monster munch. I don't know what else I can say. Okay. Okay, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? Okay, right, well, let's see what the biggest Ardbeg fuck-up of 2007 actually tastes like. Okay. There are things that must be said. It's initially got quite a chemical flavour to it. It's like what I would imagine drinking like lemon sanitizer would taste like. There is a strangely off citrusy component about it. It is a little bit vegetal, kind of like, sort of like an iceberg lettuce kind of a thing, you know, there's just like a faint hint of something green and vegetal about it. It is a little sour, I've got to say it. There is a weird sour component to it. It's not as like overwhelmingly vinegary as like the nose would have you believe, but it does have this kind of like vague balsamic glaze flavour to it almost. It's like sweet, savoury and acidic all at the same time. And there is this odd lingering bitterness to it, and I do mean bitter. It's kind of like the sort of flavour component that shouldn't really be in a whiskey, and I say shouldn't with massive air quotes. It's like, it's really not what you would expect from a whiskey of any variety. It's almost I mean, we're nowhere near Malort, because I mean that is an aggressive bitterness, but it's like it's beginning on that path of like a herbaceous bitter quality. Ooh. Yeah, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on the peat component, but there's just a really sour, biley kind of a flavour to it. I mean, using wild yeast strains in things like beers and stuff is a thing, and it does produce a funky, strange element to it. And this definitely has that. It's got a funky, strange element to it. And I'm struggling to put that into better words, but the aftertaste is a little bit like you were sick an hour ago. You know, it's not nice. Don't get me wrong, but it's as it is. You know, it's certainly an experience. I've stuck some water in it. More of a clean smoke is coming through now. Pickle onions are threatening to come back, but there's just sort of like the faintest ghost of it in the background, and beyond that, it's away, it's gone. there's cooked smoked meats about it. It's more kind of classically Ardbeg. But that kind of like knackered rubber carbolic element that you tend to get as a signature on Ardbeg, not really getting it, which is bizarre because that normally comes from the wood in the washback, so you'd expect a longer contact time to have more of that, but not really. There's a jarring sweetness to it. It's like if you tried to, I don't know, do like honey roasted cabbage or something, I suppose. It's like, you know, you're like, okay, I see where you were going, but maybe you should have left that one on the drawing room. On the drawing room? On the drawing board. On the drawing room floor is what I was going to say there. I was like, mixing my metaphors a little. Oh, it's hot. Lemon sherbet and white wine vinegar. The smoke is very delicate. There's still a little bit of it, but it's kind of like if you licked a smoky bacon crisp. It's not the kind of like heavy phenolic punch that you would expect from a standard Ardbeg. It's a little bit fruity, a little grassy. There's vegetable components melding with a kind of saccharine sweetness. There's hints of barbecue sauce in there. Again, kind of like meaty, smoky sort of components. And then there is this lingering bitterness on the finish. Again, it's that kind of like slightly biley, herbaceous bitterness to it. It's threatening on unpleasantness. It's fucking weird. Were you missing out on much? Not really. Here's the thing about a lot of these special releases. There's other whiskey out there. Other people have pointed that out, but you know, I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's a good time to be a whiskey lover. You couldn't get your hands on this bottle? Don't worry about it. There's other stuff out there. There's loads of other stuff out there. Yes, something very strange happened to this. There are bars out there. They might have a bottle. There are bars in Edinburgh that do have it for, you know, however long. I don't know. Are you missing out if you don't manage to get your hands on it, or you don't manage to try it? Nah, there's more stuff out there. And you never know, they might, another distillery might decide to do this. I don't see why they would, because it's done unusual things, but I would argue not necessarily beneficial things to the whiskey. They've bottled a mistake and they've tried to make the most out of it, and you know what? They've made it rain, because I mean they've ultimately made more money off of a fuck up. Not an intentional fuck up, but still a fuck up. Let me know down below, were you excited to see the Fermutation being released? Did you like the design? Have you had a chance to try it? Are you not sorry that you missed out on it? Leave all these comments down below. Thumb the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you like to see whiskey, gin, beer-based content, or occasionally just cameos from the cat, because he's a cutie. Thank you very much for watching, and do join me next time where I'll be drinking something else.